All right, it looks like we're live.
Welcome, welcome. We're so happy you're joining us for Creating Zola Mondays. We can use some good Zola today and tomorrow and the rest of eternity. But today, our focus is going to be on mental health and moral reasoning and the failing of imperialist agenda. I am Linda James Myers, the past president of the Association of Black Psychologists and Elder of Elders Emerita, and we have a new panelist joining us today. Yay! Dr. William Parham. He's going to introduce himself. And of course, our regulars, Dr. Harvey Lindner and Donisha Hickson.
Yeah, so I'm William Parham. I'm the chair of the crisis committee for Sawubona Healing Circles, and what I look to bring to healing circles is somatic release and parasympathetic techniques that can aid our folks in countering white oppressive systems that we have to deal with every day, that we're realizing more and more aren't built at all to serve us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you.
And for those who may be new to the program, I'm Dr. Harvey Lindner. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and a member of the ABPsi Ethics Committee. I'm also the board chair at a place in Minneapolis called the Cultural Wellness Center.
Okay, and I'm Dr. Donisha Hickson. I am currently the National ABPsi Public Relations, as well as the DC ABPsi Vice Chair and the chair for the national programming of the Sawubona Healing Circle. So I've had the great pleasure of working closely with William. He's the one responsible, along with his committee and the rest of the leadership team, for creating, crisis response for our people around the country, whether that's what's going on. I know we're working currently behind the scenes to support the folks in Cincinnati, I believe. So I'm really excited to have you here, William. And we do have a special guest. I'm not trying to ruin the surprise, but I'm trying to see if I can help that individual get on. So my apologies if I look a bit distracted.
Well, we're looking forward to our special guest, and we're also looking forward to a great conversation. So I believe if you're online now, you can certainly put information, questions, comments in our chat, because what we hope today is to have a broad conversation about mental health, moral reasoning, and the failing of imperialist agendas. Mm-hmm. As we know, in the social context that most of us acknowledging African ancestry in this nation and the Americas know, that what we've experienced in the Americas hasn't been what those colonizers of the Americas just think it is or describe it to be. And as a consequence, there's a reality, cultural and social reality, that many mainstream people in this social context have no knowledge of. And so what we want to do today is kind of bring that to the fore with the intention of hopefully moving the collective forward and elevating the consciousness of people in the society. One of the things that comes to mind immediately for me when I think about an imperialist agenda, it really began for us in the Americas with the enslavement of African people as chattel, as caste chattel. And as a consequence, the motivation for justifying our enslavement was racism. Racism, as we know, is a system of assigning value and allocating opportunity based on phenotypic differences, in this instance, particularly skin color, physiognomy, and hair texture. So automatically, just by definition, moral reasoning comes into the picture with the creation of a system of unfairly assigning value and unjustly allocating opportunity. And this comes to the fore and to our face most immediately as we listen to the current president talking about wanting to make sure that we get rid of affirmative action and any kind of DEI programs, because we need to make sure the most qualified people, and only the most qualified, are those who get to have the privilege of working in various capacities. Of course, we know there's a major contradiction, because as we look at the cabinet from this current president, none of those people are anywhere close to qualified. So we have a double standard, a dual consciousness. On the one hand, we're saying this and we're doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's been our history as people acknowledging African ancestry in this country from its inception. We're saying it's democracy, but we're enslaving people as caste chattel and forcing them to labor for the captor's wealth, the America's wealth, as well as the wealth of the entire Western world. Now, the problem is, as psychologists, we're very concerned, because what we've known all along to be true has come to the fore, and many people are shocked and surprised by what's going on, when what is actually going on is what's always gone on. It's just kind of in our face now. Mm-hmm. And then the real question becomes, what do we do about it? And how do we improve the mental health that's been so disrupted by inadequate moral reasoning? So I'll jump off my soapbox and let someone else speak.
You know, our title says something about the failing of the imperialist agenda. And I believe that a lot of people right now might be under the impression that the imperialist agenda is not failing, that it is actually triumphing at this time. And it is not. What we're seeing now, both nationally and internationally, is the imperialist agenda is falling apart. And this is what it looks like as it begins to fail, as people begin to scramble to push back the what they see as the encroachment upon their white Western European hegemony. And they don't, I was thinking about this over the weekend and thinking about, the problem with DEI. I mean, I used to be what is now called a DEI director. I was the first multicultural affairs officer for Hennepin County, where I used to work. And that was 40 years ago, 45 years ago. And they're still working on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you haven't made, inroads in 40 years, you're not doing something right. or you don't intend to do any more than what you're doing. Since I worked at Hennepin County, I've worked at several other places that are actually diverse, that are actually inclusive. And none of them had a DEI program. Because people who get it. And the organizations that don't get it put forward these facade, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs when they have no intention of becoming equitable. Because if they recognize the equity in our involvement, they couldn't just dismantle it. You could, if it was really equitable inclusion, they couldn't decide on their own without our input that they were going to dismantle this program. So it was never equitable. It was never intended to be equitable. So I'll get off my soapbox for a few moments to let other people talk. But yeah, we're going to come back to that.
Yeah, I think that I'm not sure if our special guest is ready to join us. I see her messing around with the camera. Just give me, okay, let me see here. Ta-da! Dr. Matea. Welcome. Can you hear us? We can't hear you. Are you
You
on
are
mute?
still muted.
Yeah.
So can
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
yes,
hear you.
now we can hear you. Hi.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out on my computer, so I'm on my phone. So hopefully you can see me because I can't see.
Well, we can see you, and you look wonderful, and it's great to have you with us today.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Dr. Buffet.
Hi,
How's it
Dr.
going?
Brown. Hi, I know. Small phone, Dr. Linda, Dr. Hickson. Great to be here. Good to see everybody.
Well, thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. Sorry with the technology stuff.
No worries. We're still trying to figure out this StreamYard. I'm trying to monitor like what's going on, and it looks like we're not even live on Instagram when we should be. So I'm trying to figure that out.
We're still learning this new platform.
Indeed, we are, but it's a lot better than just being on
Facebook now or YouTube or no?
Yeah, we're on Facebook and YouTube, but I don't see us on Instagram. So yeah,
At any rate, we'll work it out, I imagine, before.
we sure will. We sure will.
But back to our subject at hand.
I'm getting a lot of feedback. Is somebody typing or what is that? You moving your phone, Dr. Bethea?
Why don't we try muting our mics when we're not talking?
Okay, we'll do that. Sorry, Nolanda. Go ahead.
No, I simply saying that with regard to what Dr. Linder said, the imperialist agenda is flourishing. But I think that from their vantage point, kinda. I think even those who thought it was flourishing are beginning to wonder, what in the world did we do? Because now everybody that used to be the ally of the US of A is wondering what's wrong with those people and questioning our mental health. And what we want to do today is draw attention to a very important aspect to that absence of mental health from our cultural frame is this whole notion of moral reasoning. Our capacity to do good moral reasoning is really what underlies racism, systemic racism in this society and throughout the globe, actually. So with that as the backdrop, I just wanted to kind of repeat so Dr. Bethea can jump in, as well as Dr. Hickson and Dr. Parham.
Yeah, I think that seeing like these rollbacks is not shocking, right? This onslaught of policy changes with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? I think that this reminds me of a quote by Malcolm X, who I'm not going to quote it exactly, but he says something like, if they stab you in the back and they pull it out a little bit, you won't notice because you're being placated, right? And you might see that this is progress and that might be enough for you. And I'm personally at the stage in my Black consciousness where that's not enough. Like, it's not enough to be placated, because we see what the results of that is years later, right? They did all this diversity, social justice, inclusion stuff in the past to like reflect that we have made progress, and America is a democracy, and people of color, especially Black folks and other people of color, right? They do have a say in what's going on in the country. And people were excited. People were celebrating this. People were, let's, shout out the APA real quick in their little apology letter. People were giving them applause and saying they're really doing the work. And now it's like all that is being taken away by one executive order. So I'm so happy and proud of us that we are a self-determining and standalone organization, and we're not connected to anybody because we've never, had to answer to anybody, and we don't have to worry about being under scrutiny, right? Because we don't have to take away any of the diversity, equity, and social justice work that we've been doing, because that is who we are and who we be, as Baba Nobles would say.
Very good. Other thoughts?
And,
I think you're still muted. There you go.
Can you hear me? Because my mic is open. Yes?
We can
We can
now.
hear you.
Okay. So I was never like a DEI proponent in the first place, just because I always question my conspiracy theory thing, anything that a government like America puts in place. Always question it in the first place. And then also this notion that they give it, they can take it away. So why would we put ourselves in that position as an independent organization and a liberated people that somebody would control our work that way? So some, much of it was performative. So that's been taken out of the way, right? This idea, for lack of a better word, around tokenism, we have that one DEI person in a university or organization pretends like they're doing something because they have that one token person being there. I think we'll now really see who are, if you're in a position to care, see who are, I don't like the word allies either, so I'll say allies are people really making a commitment to this notion of equity, and there is no equity without justice. So even the DEI thing, what about the justice? And so we'll see now, because there are organizations and there are spaces and places that, even though their stuff was snatched, they're committed to equity. So they continue anyway. So we kind of see who our allies are, right? And then my hope is that we go within, right? And that we encourage self-sufficiency, defining ourselves, independence, liberation. So that is my hope as a people, because I just never understood this notion of we ask for liberation and we ask from the very people who enslaved us in the first place. So why do we do that? And so how do we leverage our talent, our genius, our HBCUs, our Black-owned businesses, our Black dollars, more self-sufficient pathways to this notion of liberation, grassroots organizations, some social media. I think we start using some of the underground Black social media, because we do have them. And how we become more global about this, right? As we actually hold on, unite with African people throughout the diaspora. And that's just a few things I'm talking about: entrepreneurship, Black entrepreneurship, buying Black. So hopefully it brings all this to the forefront and reignites things that this is not our first rodeo, y'all. We can't sit around and act like, oh, this happened to us for the first time. So how do we leverage all the things we've always been doing before we get duped in back to believing that white folks are going to save us? Because it is antithetical to their own survival to do that. So why do we keep going after that? Because it's not necessary, right? It's not necessary. So. And African, I don't know where I'm saying this at, but the list of DEI African wasn't on there. Because my African American Studies program got off. It was a freeze at my school, but they didn't even touch us. Because all those keywords didn't say African, and my program is called African.
Liberation will never be given by an oppressor to the oppressed people. And it's up to us, as we are our own medicine, to be the agents of our own liberation and to control our own destiny. And one of the things that has inspired me through this journey, this brief journey of the Trump regime, has been the uniting of African folks around the globe. I had the pleasure to attend a meeting on Saturday with brothers and sisters from all over the diaspora, Haiti, South Africa, Tanzania, and there was a common theme, that there were common themes and common elements that came up in us being our own medicine. One of the common themes is colonization and white imperialism and the effects that it has on our people globally, here globally. And one of the the most beautiful things to see, the commonalities that come out, we're using nature as medicine, using the tools and techniques that we have to strengthen our position against colonialism and the white patriarchal system. So to hear folks in Haiti utilizing circles outdoor, or hearing about a brother in South Africa and their wants and needs and desires to start working with the game reserves that are in the area and connecting the people back to the nature. And it's interesting to hear their fears of hearing white folks in South Africa being offered property in the United States to repatriate there. And I haven't heard that here in the States, but it reinforces the importance of these spaces and being able to come together to really drive self-determination and self-liberation. And to also support what's going on globally, what's going on right now in the Congo, and how we can support and show solidarity to those brothers and sisters that are experiencing what they're experiencing right now.
Linda, you're talking, but you're muted, so.
So I was saying, that's wonderful to hear. I missed that call because I couldn't get my link to work. But just to know that the impetus was around the idea of healing and healing circles, and we have people around the globe committed to that, and each in their own way sharing what their issues are, and knowing that at this juncture, it's a global issue. We have come to the place where hopefully we realize our investment in the US of A or other Euro-Western cultural traditions, cultures and societies isn't necessarily going to lead to anything more than what we got. And it's not sufficient to have imperialism in blackface. Mm-hmm. Moral reasoning is required. Mental health is required. And I think that the sentiment, at least that I've been exposed to around the globe with so many African people, is an awareness that this is true. And self-determination is the key, is the answer.
I think that one of the things that we have to remind ourselves of is, even though we have a lot of healing from the trauma that we've been through, that we are not the ones who are really sick in this paradigm. It's the people that have been in charge who are the sick ones. And that, we've had this, we have to shift the paradigm. We have to recognize that, we came from, at least when I was growing up, we just wanted a piece of the pie, and the reality is we don't want a piece of that pie. We want to change the damn recipe for the pie, and everybody can have pie. It's like, we didn't come to just get a seat at the table. We want our damn table back, So I think that we have to change that paradigm within ourselves and recognize that that's the paradigm that we have to change in the world.
Yeah, I really love what you said, Baba Linder. I think we're having a lot of conversations on the back end in the DC ABPsi chapter around the type of partnerships that we're having and the people we're engaging and how we're being intentional to work with people, or we need to be more intentional to work with people whose work is in alignment with the Association of Black Psychologists and our mission and vision. And I think that part of that conversation has been like, yes, there is a need for visibility, but I'm also, again, at a point in my Black consciousness where visibility is the minimum. It's the same thing as when we were saying Black Lives Matter. Yes, we know that we matter, but we still need resources. We need, to dismantle certain power structures that are going to keep oppressing us. So for us to say Black Lives Matter, yes, that's very true, but we need more. So I feel like for people to use the argument that we need to be in certain spaces for visibility, we need to move beyond that. I think that if you really study the history of ABPsi, right, we weren't trying to seek visibility. We were trying to burn shit to the ground, part of my language, and build our own, which is what we've been doing for the past 56 years. So I really appreciate that whole construct of, or that whole concept of like, we don't want to sit at their table. We've already sat at their table. We've tried to integrate into their table, and it's been to the detriment of Black people across the diaspora, and continues to be. So I'm over, being visible. I'm of the belief that if you build it, they will come. The people, that need to be in spaces that we are in doing the work will eventually come on home to ABPsi. And if we're not visible to them, then maybe they're not looking in the right places. I also see some comments on Instagram, so I'm going to read those really quickly. Because I do want to acknowledge the folks that are joining us. Someone said, shout out to Dr. Bobby Wright, Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Maria Cambone, and Dr. Mark Bolden, ABPsi era, that have helped me get my mind right. There's also a comment that says, if anyone can help heal our people, it should be African-centered psychologists, Ashe. And so those are some, is there a chapter in Atlanta? I'm not sure. Or in Dallas, Texas. Do we have a chapter in Atlanta or Dallas, Dr. Bethea?
Dr. Bethea.
You're muted.
Sorry, I keep hitting
There you
the
go.
button. Yes, we have chapter in Atlanta. We have members in Dallas. We have a chapter in Houston. So, and Ashe to all of that. Yes.
Mhm.
Since we were talking about coming together globally, I want to put a plug in for a program coming up on February 26th at Howard University Law School, Justice for Marcus Garvey, The Way Forward. This is the coming together of a collaborative of many international organizations as well as those in the US. So if you're interested, if I were not so technically challenged, I could post the flyer, but I'm sure if you go to the Garvey Institute online, their website, you could find out about that. I think what's interesting for me about that is that Garvey amassed the first global and largest unification of Black people throughout the diaspora, and he's recently been given a posthumous pardon, and that's been fought for a very long time, and that people are still feeling and resonating with his teachings and with his philosophies well enough to come together again in 2025 to talk about a way forward based on his philosophies.
I just wanted to share a quote from Dr. Kwame Ture. And it's ultimately the economic foundations of this country must be shaken if Black people are to control their lives. The colonies of the United States, and this includes the Black ghettos within its borders, north and south, must be liberated. For a century, this nation has been like an octopus of exploitation, its tentacles stretching from Mississippi and Harlem to South America, the Middle East, Southern Africa, and Vietnam. The form of exploitation varies from area to area, but the essential result has been the same. A powerful few have been maintained and enriched at the expense of the poor and voiceless colored masses. This pattern must be broken. These words were spoken in 1966. You replace Vietnam with Israel, you replace Vietnam with Palestine, and these words are the exact same today.
That's because the paradigm hasn't changed. They've rearranged some of the seats at the table, but the paradigm hasn't changed at all. And it won't change until we change it. They're not going to change it. The paradigm works fine for them. And so we can't expect them to change the paradigm. We can't expect them to be necessarily partners in our liberation until they see it as their liberation as well.
I think this is something. Oh, sorry, Dr. Linder.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think this is something that we say quite frequently on Creating Zola Mondays for newer people, but right, we understand as the Association of Black Psychologists and people acknowledging African descent that all of our liberation is inextricably bound in one another. So if we can understand why the people in Palestine need attention and visibility and resources, that we can understand why the people from the Congo to the Sudan to the streets in Jersey City and Chicago and Atlanta and all in Ohio and all the places where our people be, then we can understand why everything must go. Like, this is not working for anybody. I don't know if the white people are intentionally delusional, but it's not even working for them. So it's like, this is an age of reckoning, right? We talk about that constantly, how we're in the age of Aquarius. And I love how we positioned the conversation last time where we said that, Nana Linda, you said this is a great situation for which the imperialist system will fall, right? People will realize that this is not going to work. And I don't think that Americans will understand that these policies that this man is putting in place, not my president, is going to hurt us, right? These tariffs, this, cutting ties with people overseas that we get resources from, right? Like, that we can't produce here in the States, or not at the same rate. So it's like, it's not going to hurt them until it starts hitting their pockets. And, we're going to be good at the end of the day.
On the way, though, is so much that we need to do. For example, the cutting or dismantling of USAID and allowing $500 million worth of food to spoil when they're starving children all over the world. That makes no sense, in the name of cutting cost, creating savings. So at some point, we have to come to grips with, if you're not honoring your word, then you need to be quiet, or we need to call you out, and we need to stand for truth, justice, and righteousness, which has been our historical cultural foundation. And so just like their paradigm hasn't changed, our paradigm has not changed either. It's about ma'at. It's about truth, justice, and righteousness. It's about elevating our consciousness so that we have an obligation to be fair and just and equitable. And as we begin to shift our attention away from what they're doing or not doing to what we want to create and how we want to create it, then I think we will have found the real path to mental health, and our moral reasoning will have to be enhanced in order for us to make that shift.
So we have to stay razor focused on what it is we're trying to create, what kind of world we're trying to build, and not get sidetracked into a reactionary stance, reacting to the outrageous things that they're doing, because that lets them set the agenda, and we have to have our own agenda and pursue that agenda, and eventually bring them along with it. But we can't continue to let them set the agenda. I mean, they've essentially said they're cutting waste, right? But that waste that they're cutting, that's us. They have essentially defined us as waste. And they're saying we need to get this waste out of our society, and so we're who they're talking about when they say they're cutting waste.
They're actually creating waste of food that people so desperately need to live, and therefore they're cutting life. They're destroying life. And I think you're right, Dr. Linder. It may be that life is the waste they're talking about.
So my question is, are they? I mean, I'm kind of like in line with Will. We've always known how to grow food. Has that been to our detriment that we've let USAID teach us how to grow food? That's on purpose by design. This whole dependent on them, we can't live without them. We concentrate too much. I don't care what they think. We are the original. We have done it all. We can do it all. We still can do it all. That's why I'm thinking, if divine order is divine order, period, if we truly believe that, and sometimes do we, as I hear the way that we talk, that we gonna remember how to grow food. It is in our DNA. We're gonna remember how to take care of our children. We're gonna remember, they have always been this way.
Mm-hmm.
Trump told y'all what he was gonna do. Why y'all mad? He told you before he was elected what he was gonna do. And now that he's doing it, but he told us what he was gonna do. He was very clear about his racism. He was very clear about, and I didn't even watch the news that much, and I was very clear about who he was. So when are we gonna believe them? And why does it really matter for our liberation? Because it doesn't. In my mind, it's my opinion. We are each other's medicine, absolutely. Mm-hmm. That we have done this, we do this, we've always done this. That we talk about all these Mod and Ubuntu and Zola, and then we sit around and have conversations about what the white people are doing to us. That is antithetical to anything I understand in those statements. Mm-hmm. They're not truth. They're not justice. They're not harmony. So why are we focused on them? Mm-hmm.
I think one reason
been that way. They've never said they were any different. So this whole notion as Black people, we're gonna change them. No, let's just worry about us. Be about us throughout the African diaspora. Mm-hmm. That in spaces and places all over the African diaspora and on the continent, people are talking about this. There are people actually talking about taking Africa back and charging them. We should be on that bandwagon and charging them market value for all their stuff. Mm-hmm. There are actually African people talking about that. Have been talking about that. Right? Bring up Congo. My goodness. People got mad at me because I bought a Congo the other day. Yes, I'm bringing up Congo. Most resourced. So, of course, they're under heavy attack. And, of course, they've convinced, because it's nothing to write some crooked president $1 trillion check because they can make trillions. What do I do? I'm a leader. America just offered me $1 trillion. Because that's no money compared to what you're going to get out of Congo. Right? Mm-hmm. So I just want to figure out how we get out of that conversation about people who are who they have always said they're going to be, who they've always said they were. And I agree, stop reacting to that. What are our own resources? We got resources, y'all. When they do that kind of statistical analysis, I don't know what it comes to, when they look at African Americans' wealth, we're somewhere on the list that's pretty high. Mm-hmm. That keeps coming back to us again. We were the largest group of people that by the time we get our paycheck, by the time we get home, 80% we've given to somebody else. By the time we get home, once we pick up our paycheck. Mm-hmm. So how do we just talk about shifting us back to who we've always been, Spirit. We know spirit. That's how we survive the tyranny of America, because we know spirit so well. Right? So I guess, yeah. So the conversation about what we're going to do about the white folks.
Well, the reality is that you're right. The conversation shouldn't be about what we're going to do about the white folks. The conversation should be, what are we going to do about ourselves? And how are we going to do it? You know? And how we train our next generation, you know, to become, you know, the people that they can become, to become the people that the world needs for them to become.
You know, one of the things we've always tried to do on Creating Zola Mondays is talk about how do we make that shift. And I think the only reason we mention the white supremacist system is because all of us have been exposed to the pathogen of the white supremacist system. Many of us have been brainwashed and internalized that false reality. And so now becomes the prime time when we can help people see, oh my goodness, that which we've defined as excellence and that which we've been so eagerly pursuing is leading to the destruction of the entire planet. Maybe we do need to go back and follow the path created by our ancestors, but by design. The reason we don't have plenty of food for everybody in Africa is pretty much because of the IMF and the United States strategies of exploitation and manipulation and control and brainwash. And people who have morally committed to nothing in the wisdom tradition of African deep thought, but bought totally into the imperialist, colonialist, neo-colonialist idea of, oh, I just want to get mine, pay me. And unfortunately, it's far, far, far too prolific a strategy for people to buy into at this juncture, because by now we should see, oh, this is where that leads. And that's not where I want to go. So changing the hearts and minds of people, again, in my opinion, requires elevating consciousness, which requires a depth of moral reasoning that we simply don't have in the dominant Euro-Western social context. But we have it in the African social context. But everything African is an African in the wisdom tradition of African deep thought. Just because you speak the language and wear the dress doesn't mean you carry the consciousness. So what we're eager about now is those people who do carry the consciousness come together and move us forward as the collective. And I see that. I see a lot of people doing that, each in their own way. And it's a challenge. And we will certainly continue to do that at the Association of Black Psychologists. But the reality is that our mental health has been, damaged. We have been become menocidal by design. And our beloved ancestors and elders have left the roadmap. I'm thinking now of beloved Bobby Wright, who nailed it many, many decades ago now. But it's not like we don't know what to do. It's not that we don't know how to do it. And it's not that we aren't doing it. But we're so appreciative of the Association of Black Psychologists and opportunities for this forum and others like it, the healing circles that we're doing, have done throughout the nation to really meet people in crisis and uplift them and give them hope and give them the truth. Because right now, they've been fed so many lies and so much fake information, false information, disinformation. And now we have the opportunity to come forward and speak truth and live truth and heal. So I think this is the perfect time for us to step up and realize our greatest potential and probably our purpose for being here at this place and time.
And
I think as a people,
can we continue to make a commitment to putting that information out in droves? That we're constantly talking about mobilization, we're constantly talking about liberation, we're constantly talking about feeding ourselves. Just continue to, on a larger scale, that every time we come in spaces and places that we're talking about these solutions that we've always had as African people, that in our classes, around our people, at our conferences, in forums, that constantly talk about this issue. Because there are more and more Black people in their homes growing their own food. So maybe we should have them around always talking about how to grow your own food. I even had a sister who actually has collected her own water, clean water in her house. She set up, I was like, wow, never thought of that. So she said, in case America decides to poison us all, let me show you what I've done in my house to collect clean water. And she got it from an old thing that she saw of an African person setting this up to irrigate land where there was no water. She said, I wonder if I can do that at my house. And she has. So she barely has a water bill. So let's commit to keep putting the information out to counter it. Whenever, yes, everybody's worried about education. When I say that Board of Education, they're dismantling. Our children are doing worse than they ever have. So do I think they should dismantle it this way? No. But our children is, with that in place, our children are dropping out. I'm not going to college. College graduation is declining, right? So in instead of saying, oh my God, the government can't do that to our children, because most public school systems are very black and brown because it's been complete white flight. Especially I live in a city where we're one of the worst school systems in the country. It's mostly a black and brown public school system. And what is our answer to that? I'm saying the independent Black school was the answer, but do we remember the independent Black school movement, because we've been here before? Do you remember what happened in the Panthers with free hospitals, right? Before the attack happened, right? So how do we do that again? Because there's independent schools all over the diaspora. We just don't talk about them that way. Because they're gonna dismantle. We can't let our kids sit and keep suffering because we want to argue with them. It's happening. What is our answer? And let's put that information in, because there is an answer. Right?
Well, maybe this is a good
school. Can we commit? I'll commit to doing a Saturday school at my house. Can we get enough people to commit to do it? Can you imagine Saturday school at my house? Or at the Center for Independent Studies down the street. Can we all come together and do Saturday schools to teach this information to our kids? Because we do know when we give it to them, they do different. So we got to take that responsibility on.
Yeah, I live in a predominantly white area in Oregon, and one of the folks out here, one of the organizers, is setting up every other Saturday a Saturday school like environment for Black kids, so that we can get together with them, fill them with Zola, fill them with pride, and even offer a circle for them so that they can have a space to shore themselves up, because these kids deal with systematic racism in their face. And so we as a people, when I hear Dr. Bate talk about that, it reminds me of Black cultural revolution, and putting our time and our energy into this cultural revolution. From the music that we make, the music that we digest, it's multifaceted. And so I don't want to listen to music that's talking about consumerism anymore. I want to listen to music that talks about liberation. I want to listen to music that talks about growing my own food. I want to listen to music that talks about having a water catching system or anaerobic digester, so that I can make my own methane gas and not be dependent on these systems that are ultimately built to fail and are going to fail.
Well, maybe some of those are ideas that could be incorporated into the communiversity that ABPsi has been, begun building to educate, the public. We bring these ideas together and put them online, and some of them are ideas that people can use to get continuing education credits, but some of them are just ideas that ought to be out there in the diaspora. And we need to remind people that ABPsi is building that. We talk about the healing circles, and we ought to talk about the other things that ABPsi is doing to begin the process of re-educating ourselves and re-educating the world.
Yeah. You gonna say something, Analinda?
We have a foundation.
Yes, I was.
We're very proud of the 80 people that signed up for the foundation, of course, but it should have been 800. Should have been 8,000.
Next year it might be 800, and the year after that it might be 2,000.
We're having a foundation, of course, that we're sacrificing every Saturday to do. We need to show up. Everybody at ABPsi who's done this work need to put up their hand and say, you know what? After you guys finish, we'll do 5 weeks also. After you guys finish, we'll do 5 weeks also for the people. And we offer it on purpose by design for our students for free. You're a member of ABPsi student, you get to come for free. Because that's how we train the next generation. So mechanisms there, we need for folks from ABPsi to set up and say, you know what, we got so many theories in ABPsi. Some really good ones. I'll go next. That we have this continuously going for every Saturday. We have that many members that if everybody participated, it would not be a heavy lift. And we opened up to our members. We start inviting high school kids they get to come free.
Mhm.
So we have the mechanism in place to do it. So now I was just making it, because I think I said it earlier this morning. ABPsi is good at the theory we put out. Oh my God, blows my mind.
Mhm.
We're good at writing, and we have great ideas. Right? So there's a moment where we work that hard. How do we get back to that? Are we willing to do this for our people? Every night, every Wednesday night, however many nights it takes, every Saturday, because they're getting this information nowhere. And that's what people are saying. The 83 people who signed up was like, I've never got this information anywhere. But ABPsi has it. So let's offer it to the Black world, because we can. And I know people are busy. They got things to do, but what we can't keep doing is keep complaining about it and don't do nothing about it. Right?
We can't keep waiting for somebody else to do it. Myself and Dr. Varner, we used to come to ABPsi meetings, and we, were hoping like somebody would start a chapter in our hometown in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities, and we kept trying to encourage other people to start a chapter in Minnesota, and it finally dawned on us that nobody else was going to do it. So we had to do it. And I think that we have to remind the people out there that we all have something to teach, even though we all still have a lot to learn. I've continued to learn for the last 30, 40 years since we started that chapter. And I'm still learning, and I will be learning until I die. But we all have something to teach. And, I'm reminded of the concept I learned when I was studying Kiswahili, the concept of the mwanafunzi, that, it means student, but in a sense, it means student teacher, because we all have something to learn and we all have something to teach, and we have to remember that.
I see in the chat people are talking about Black farmers. And I'm a member of the Black Farmers Association in Kansas, and Black farmers are struggling. And probably the people most hurt by the shift in policies and the so-called money savings lie are farmers. And Black farmers, of course, are going to be hit worse. Also, just want to think about with the shift in funding from public schools to charter schools to private schools, the schools we had called independent Black schools, those people are still around teaching. They need to dab into that pile of money that's taken from children in public school and put it in their schools and get the children from public school in their schools, because for the next year or so, I think they're still going to tax us. So our kids should benefit by the shift in policy that is happening.
Thanks, Nana Linda. We do have some questions. I just want to be mindful of our time and see if we have a moment to address at least one or two questions for the folks joining us. And I think that, right, a lot of what we're talking about has to do with infrastructure and the institution that we have been building as the association for the past 56 years, right? We can look to our chapters for this work. We can look to our national programs for healing, for education, right? We literally have the answers. So one of the questions from our viewers is, what of the notion of collective work and responsibility in local communities to implement the 16 lessons that ABPsi has recorded this morning? This individual has been taking notes and has been numbering, some of the more salient points that we've been making. So he's wanting to know, what is that notion of collective work and responsibility, or JIMA, my favorite Kwanzaa principle, in local communities look like based on what we talked about today so far?
I always like to turn back to drop your buckets where you are. So wherever you are, drop your bucket there and get to work. There are people there, and they don't have to be in your locality. You can drop your buckets where you are and have an international reach. But I think if everyone takes their talents and invests their time, then we'll be fine. And I think the coming together that we all would hope for, so that that collective work and responsibility can be manifest, so more people may become aware of it, can only be enhanced by forums like this, where we talk about what's available, what we're doing. But I know so many people who are doing so many things, working as hard as they can, probably harder than they should in old age. But they're getting things done and they're making a difference in people's lives. So I want us not to just turn our attention to what needs to be done, but also applaud those who are doing it.
I think if you drop your bucket where you are, it's in sync with the concept of think globally, act locally, because locally is the only place you can act. You can only act where you are. But if you make a change in your own community, you are in effect starting a change in the world.
Yeah, and I would be, remiss not to mention, as public relations, that we have national programs, right, that our beloved president and past presidents and members have been working to establish through COVID, before COVID, after COVID. And so, right, we're talking about education. We have the National Association of Black Psychologists School District Consultation Program that's headed by Mom Hubert or Dr. Hubert or Jackson Lohman to address the discrepancies or disparities that we are seeing in the education system where our children, I'm a school psychologist full time, so I'm seeing the effects of this education system obliterate our children. We are having an education crisis. They are having difficulties reading and writing and doing math and critically thinking. And so, if you have a vested interest in education, join the Association of Black Psychologists School District Consultation Program. Myself and William, we're a part of the South Bona Healing Circles, where we are responding to crisis. We are responding to Black folks all over the country, internationally, right, in Haiti, in Africa, who are hurting, who do need a space that is rooted in African-centered work and healing, where we're coming together virtually, in person if we can, and holding space for one another and sharing our healing methods and, cursing people out that deserve it, or just talking about our grief and our joy and our triumphs. And so, yeah, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I see Madam President did unmute, so I'll.
And I just want to add, maybe we can make a commitment to. We got the next LDI person coming up. Maybe we should put out a better list and ask for a better list of organizations, because yes, there are people doing this work. So maybe we commit to start to put together a list, put it on our website, so people would go as chapters locally to write those organizations. That's kind of like when we did the wildfires, that when I did the resources, I first put all the resources that Black people were doing for LA, because people didn't know, and it was only in the Black newspapers, right? So maybe we can commit as an association to all get together and start putting those lists together, so people know they can come to our website to find out things that are going on that actually is participating in the liberation of African people, as well as all our national programs that people can participate in, but also a space and place, or even that people can add to. Sometimes you have something on your website that says, the local organization is doing ABPsi, please add to this list. Somebody looks through it and then post it, because you don't know what you don't know, right? And we can help with you knowing. That would be great. And of course, everybody's invited to our conference, where there's lots of networking going on, which is in July. And even when we were talking about, I didn't hear the organization that you talked about when you went to that meeting of people all over the world, but let's put that on the website, so next time people can hear the conversation that's going on, and we begin to unite one by one, each organization.
That was actually through the international initiatives for South Bona Healing Circles. So the work that we're doing.
Yeah, we had a foundational course at the same time, so I couldn't come yet.
Yeah, and then there's a question. Oh, sorry, Dr. Bethea. What were you saying? There's one more question. I'm wondering if we can address it, because I think this is something that we get hung up on as a people, right? We keep talking about Why do we focus so much on what they're doing to us and the pain and the trauma, and what about the solution? So one person in the chat asked on YouTube, how does one educate the brainwash when they tell you psychologists, anthropologists, neurologists, psychoanalysts are lying about the Bible? How? So this question has a lot to do with multidisciplinary work, as well as religion and spirituality, which we've grappled with a bunch of times on Creating Zola Mondays. I'll put the question here for anyone who wants to tackle it. I'm also thinking, while folks are thinking, really sorry, Dr. Linda. I'm also thinking about what Baba Noble said. I don't know when he said this, but we were having a meeting. It was ABPsi family. And he was saying that we're getting so caught up on this distinction between different disciplines. And really, if we think about what Nana Linda talks about with the African tradition of deep thought, right, everything is all kind of along a spectrum. So if you come into the discipline of psychology, we're going to be doing things that, that kind of have to do with education, that have to do with neurology, that have to do with anthropology, right? And it's all going to kind of mesh with one another. And I think it's a very Western mindset for us to have those distinctions and draw those lines in the sand. But I digress. I heard somebody unmute.
Actually, you're not digressing at all, because I think it's important for people to understand the difference between your Western idea that's fragmented, that tries to chop up knowledge versus African-centered Africological analysis that understands the interrelated and interdependence of all things and the oneness. So in answer to the really good question, the brainwash, you can almost identify immediately if they're fragmenting the knowledge. Because one of the things we do know when you have a more holistic and integrative approach to knowledge is that the roots of the Bible, or what we now refer to as the Bible, are African roots. And the stories, most stories in the Bible are stories that were told thousands of years before there was the Euro-Western Bible. So I think one strategy that could be very helpful to overcome the brainwashing would be to position yourself so you could be educated about what is actually rooted in the wisdom tradition of African deep thought, which most of the teachings of the Bible are, but not just the Bible. It can be any major religion, particularly if it's a religion like Christianity or Judaism or Islam, have African roots. And you can learn about the worldview of the people who put forward those ideas. And therefore, you can develop a better and more effective strategy for discerning what's true and what's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts? Oh, sorry, Dr.
I would say to those people who have questions, that it's good to have questions. But it's also good to seek answers, to go back and look and try to find out, like why, if you're saying, why are the psychologists and anthropologists lying to us? Go back and examine their lies. Examine, where you think those lies came from, why they're saying what they're saying. Examine what you believe and what you were told, and ask yourself, why do I believe that? How did I come to know what I know? And how do other people come to know what they know? We get into this dispute over, who's lying and who's telling the truth. You can discover the truth yourself if you're willing to look.
Yep. And again, as public relations, I'll be remiss not to promote our international convention. This is the first time that we will be at an HBCU, starting a long partnership with these folks. So we're really excited to be in community. We will have a number of different events that will be tackling these issues, right? Anywhere you think you can fit in, you can get in. There will be something for everybody, something for those of us operating in education and academia, something for those of us who are, navigating being a Black farmer, maybe, right? So I don't know if you want to share more about conference, Dr. Bethea, but I'm super excited, especially for the sunrise ceremony on the beach.
Yes, we're having a conference in Florida at Bethune-Cookman. 30-year-old Black woman who started a independent educational spot for Black folks with $1.50 in their pocket. $1.50. It still exists today. So we talk about, do we have solutions? We have solutions. And so whatever the politics you believe, we've got to honor that a 30-year-old Black woman took $1.50 and made an educational space for Black people that still exists today. So we're going to celebrate 120 years. First time ABPsi has ever been at a HBCU for a national conference, because we've been to HBCUs for other things before our actual national conference. We will have an amazing sunrise tribute to our ancestors. It's been a rough couple of years for me as a president, because we've had quite a few transitions in the year, and almost a year and a half I've been here. So we'll be adding to it, giving stools to people who transitioned in that role. And we invite everybody to come out and do this. It's our first time do this with us. And we're doing very hard to have a hybrid component. As soon as we do, we'll get that out. But I'm excited. I'm excited. And our conferences are always epic. So I expect this will be epic also. ABPsi.org.
So we're running out of time. Are there any last comments or thoughts people would like to share before we close out? We apologize if your audio was as choppy as mine. We'll get it straightened out hopefully next time. And we just thank you for joining us, and thanks you for sharing your thoughts and your comments. And we will continue to go forward.
Peace.
And we've won. Peace and love all.
Also, sorry, before I end the stream, someone said again in 2 weeks. Oh my God, calling us out. You guys have been missing. We haven't been missing. Facebook has been censoring us. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what's been going on, but we've been having difficulties getting live on Facebook Watch, which is why we transitioned to this new platform. So in order, for Black History Month, we will be posting some of those older episodes that you can kind of watch on your own time. But yes, we will always be going live every first and third Monday of the month. So Asante Sana for joining us.
Peace and blessings.
Take care.